matter of how much sun does each one need. You have to do your research. So you have to say, if you want corn, how much sun does corn need? Corn needs a lot of sun, I'll tell you that. And it grows really tall. So you can put corn at the end of the bed, but I probably would not put like tomatoes right next to corn, right? Because they both need a lot of sun, and they're going to be competing for the sun because they both grow tall, right? So that's something you have to consider, just very basic stuff with your location. Again, just plan. This is a picture. You can't see it that well, but you can do what they call your early. So you plant your early crops, so things that have a quick turnaround, like lettuces, radishes, any root vegetable, carrots. They have a quick turn. Carrots don't have a quick turnaround, but they stay underneath the soil, right? They stay underneath because they're root vegetables. So you can actually plant them in between the ones that are going to grow really tall or wide, right? Because they don't require a lot of space. So you can actually look at your area, measure it out, draw it on a piece of paper, and then say, I'm going to put my early crops in between the ones that take a long time and grow really wide or tall. That's what I would do. So this is an actual picture of what you would do. Master gardeners are pretty old school. They do a lot of paper and pencil stuff, right? I love it. So deciding the size, making the garden too large, I mentioned, is common mistake of enthusiasts. We want to just go crazy and grow everything, which I'm excited that you're excited, but you need to know about your available room. So for apartment dwellers, the garden, maybe a planter box is a better idea. Or if you're a first-time gardener and you're not really sure about your soil and you don't know, you can buy little raised beds at, again, the box store. They have them in a box and they're just good to go. You start fresh. So considering that too. But if you live in a rural area, I know a lot of us in Seguin have space and land, then you have plenty of ground space for a garden, so you're good. Also your time. So with a 1 acre garden, it is a lot of work. So I have to have someone out there every single day. I'm not available to be out there every day. So you have to consider, do you work a full-time job? How much time are you going to have? When are you going to have this time? Is it going to be after work or school or on the weekends? So you need to know if you have enough time for a large garden. If you're going to consider a large garden, you have to have the time to put into it because it requires daily care. If you don't have enough time, then maybe starting off small, right? Again, like a planter box or a small container garden first. Family size is another thing. So it can be a family activity. Remember, gardening is great exercise. It's good to get outside and get some vitamin D from the sun. But if you have a larger size family, then you can do a larger garden if you have the space and you have people to do it, right? It's a great family activity. So you can also use more vegetables, or you can donate them to the food bank if you have an excess. But yes, just saying, consider your family size. And then also your reason for gardening. So if the garden is a recreational activity, a container or flower bed garden may be big enough. But if you want to grow vegetables for canning or freezing or for long-term, storage, then again, that's something you consider because you have a bigger area. That's great. So types of vegetables. Some vegetables take a lot of room. Some are going to be like I said, some tomatoes grow really tall and really wide. Okra grow really tall. They grow well during the summer here, but they grow really tall. So you need that space. Consider how much space. Any kind of vegetable that grows on a vine, a squash, melons, what else grows on a vine? Beans. So they all grow on a vine, and they're going to need a lot of space. That may not be ideal for a container garden or you have a patio only, right? If you have space, go for it. But you need to consider how much space you have, how much you want, and the types of vegetables that you want to grow. So most need at least 3 feet of space between rows. If you're going to do rows, you need at least 3 feet. So, in a 6-foot bed, that's pretty big, you would need 3 feet in between both rows. So you need a lot of space if you're going to do those vining vegetables. If you want to plant 10 rows of vegetables, more power to you, but remember, you're going to need at least 30 feet, right? That's a lot of space. So just considering those things whenever you are growing your vegetables. So here we go. Deciding what to grow is just as big. We talked about location. You know what you need to consider, but this is what you would consider when you're thinking about what to grow. So I put some things on this slide, small versus large, right? Small gardens, again, are things that require very little space right now. If you want to go throw some radishes in the ground, beets are great. Anything, any root vegetables in season, beets, turnips, kohlrabi, all of those are great because they have a quick turnaround, about 30 days to 45 days. So in a month, they're going to be ready. And they require very little space. And then things like cabbage, I was going to say, oh yeah, broccoli, because it's just one plant. You're going to get one plant off of that broccoli. You're going to get one plant off of that cabbage. But it's just right there, right? It doesn't vine out. The plants can get big, but they don't vine out, right? So larger gardens, you are going to need more space for those on the left. Or I guess that's your right. On the right there. So any kind of potato, if you've never seen potatoes grow, again, you place them under the soil, but they grow big, giant, leaves out of the top. And then they're just going to grow out, especially sweet potatoes. They grow really, they're beautiful plants, but they grow really big. Cucumbers, same thing. Any type of squash, any type of pumpkin, anything in that family. Pumpkin, squash, cucumbers, all of those are going to grow out pretty big. You need a bigger space. Cherry tomatoes are a different story. You can usually do those in a little pot. There's a specific variety, which you're going to see later, BHN 968, or I think that's it. But it's a beautiful, beautiful cherry tomato plant. Does really well here in Texas, and you can grow that in a pot. Light requirement. Remember, these require bright sunlight. These are more of your warmer weather crops. You can certainly do some of them late spring, but they require a lot of sun. And they are not frost tolerant. So I would not do them until the freeze is over, which here in Seguin, I believe March 15th is considered the last date where you might have a freeze. Of course, we're in Texas and you never know. But for the most part, you're pretty safe after that middle week of March. Then this right here, tolerant partial shade. These are your cooler weather stuff. So I already mentioned any roots, but also greens. Spinach is great. Kale is great. If you haven't tried it, try it. It's really good. It's good for you. Question? Well, no. You can plant them. And so I'm going to give you another table, and it's in your packet, but it tells you the dates that you can plant them. A lot of these you could probably plant now, but some of them you can't. You could put them in the ground. Because I'm going to put my broccoli in this week, my broccoli, my cauliflower, my cabbage, all this week. They're going to be fine. But I would not do squash and tomato. It's by variety, so it's very specific. If you want to be successful, you have to look at the specific variety of the plant you're growing and see for that plant. So I can't say all of these are going to be, you need to plant on March 15th. Because some of them you can plant before March 15th. Some of them you would have to wait till after. So it's very specific to the type of vegetable that you want to grow. Yeah. But in general, just know that these require a lot of sunlight. These require less sunlight. So they'll be better if you don't have the space. This is more for considering your location. But yes, there are a whole list. I'll give you a list in a minute of when to plant what and when you're safe to plant things. So hardiness zone. So I looked it up, Seguin, because I work in Comal. I generally do Comal gardening, but Seguin specifically is in zone 3, zone 8B. Now this is very important, okay? Hardiness zone refers to how well a plant will survive in cold temperatures. So why this is important to you? Because this is going to decide what grows well in your specific home area. So remember, I just said last frost date, March 1st through 10th for zone 3, zone 8B. Do not plant warm weather crops until after the danger of frost is over. So I have a list of cold weather crops and warm weather crops. In a minute you're going to see. Like I mentioned, squash. You could do winter squash right now, put it in the ground, and then you probably will get a few before it gets too hot. but you couldn't put like really like the green zucchini, the yellow crookneck squash. Those things require more sun, and they're not going to last through a frost. They'll die. So you don't want to plant those warm weather crops until after this date. You have to look up. You have to do your research, your planning. Okay, what is a warm weather crop? And I can't plant those warm weather crops and put them into the ground until after March 10th. If it's a cool weather crop, you can put them in the ground now and expect to have them probably late March, right? Your spring garden, because that's when spring happens. So you're planning now in the winter for what you're going to be eating at the end of March. But yes, so that for your information, if you live in Seguin in this area, zone 3, you can even probably Google it. What vegetables grow well in zone 3? Zone 8B. You're going to get a whole list. Here's some more information on the hardiness zone. You can see that little Texas area. So we are right at the bottom. Let's see if I can get this to work. Right at the bottom there. We're like almost in zone 4. But yeah, we're like right there. So some additional information, I just thought this was interesting. Again, you can see your average first frost date. So when you're planting your fall garden, right, your first frost is the 21st through the 30th. So you would basically be planting, like all of your summer crops are going to be, you cannot have them past this date. Like I said, we live in Texas. I've had stuff that was summer crops grow into December just because that year was a hot year. So again, it just depends on the year, but in general, this is like when they consider the first frost date. So you plan around the cold weather. And you look for your specific zone. This is Seguin, and it tells you average temperature throughout the year, average minimum, average maximum, and then also how much rainwater you're getting, because the best thing as a gardener is rain. Love rain, because then you don't have to rain. Water. But then you can get too much rain. Like this past year, I got too much rain, and my tomatoes got mold. So we're always dealing with the elements. We're at the mercy of the elements, right, as a gardener, unless you do an indoor garden or have a greenhouse. But vegetables are divided into 2 groups. So to answer your question about the cool weather and the warm weather, here are some cool weather season crops here. So your greens, think about things that are kind of really hardy on the outside, hard vegetables. Like I said, your cabbage, your cauliflower, your broccoli, Brussels sprouts are great. And then all of your greens, collards, kales, spinach, lettuce, all kinds of lettuces. Onions, anything that grows under the ground right now is great. Warm weather, this is when you're getting closer to the end of spring. This is when you would start thinking about, okay, what do I want for summer? So, end of March, you're starting to plan for what you're going to plant end of April, right? Or beginning of May for the summertime. So this is what you would want in the summer or end of spring. Then how often? So thinking about, again, how much time do you have? Some things have a quick turnaround. If I'm doing classes with a series and I'm going to have 4 weeks, so I'm like, okay, today we're going to plant beets and radishes because I know that at the end of the series in 4 weeks they're going to be done and you can harvest them. However, I have 32 raised beds and I don't have time. So what I do is I do a lot of slow things that I know will not require me to harvest them every single day. That was one of my problems during the summer. I did all tomatoes because I just got super excited about tomatoes, and I had literally thousands of pounds of tomatoes and I could not keep up. I was out there every day, volunteers out there every day, and we were getting rid of the tomatoes, but there was always more tomatoes. So you don't want to do that, right? Because then they goes to waste. So just kind of deciding, okay, maybe you want some stuff quick, some stuff moderate, some stuff long. You kind of plant in sections. Today I'm going to do, and then if you do want broccoli all season or, cabbage or whatever it is, think, okay, I'm going to plant some today. I'm going to plant some in a week. I'm going to plant some in 3 weeks, right? Week. That way you're harvesting at different times and you're not harvesting it all at once. And then you have 1,000 pounds of tomatoes and no way to get rid of them. So just keep that in mind when you're planning. I like to get a calendar and do it quarterly. And I'll say, okay, today I'm going to plant my cabbage. Next week, I'm planting my tomatoes. And then I'll go 60 to 80 days, depending on the variety. I look at my seed packet and it tells you how many days. 120 days to harvest. Go 120 days forward and say, this is the day I am harvesting my tomatoes or my cabbage or my cauliflower. That way you know what days are harvest days. So you really do have to get your calendar out, plan it. When are you going to put it in the ground? When are you going to harvest, right? So here's some vegetables, and I put stuff specific to the spring. So this is stuff that you could plant, but like tomatoes, remember I just mentioned tomatoes are a warm weather, sun-loving plant. You would want to do those March 15th through April 10th. Today is not a good day for tomatoes because what if it freezes? Those tomatoes are dead and done. But things that you could plant, like right now, like I said, this week I'm working on getting my broccoli in the ground. I'm working on getting my cauliflower in the ground. We have lettuce already going. Onions are going in the ground this week. I'm doing potatoes this week. So you can see here, depending on the type of vegetable, will also depend on when to plant. This I got straight off the internet. Texas AgriLife Extension. You can find this for all of the different vegetables in your region. I just picked a few that I thought were probably popular in this area. So that was the answer to your question, basically, depending on what it is. But yes, you can put stuff in the ground now, depending on what it is. Corn is still a little bit early. You would wait a couple more weeks for that, but certainly you can be putting stuff in the ground right now for spring. And then you would wait even later for some of the stuff that will be ready late spring, early summer. So there you go. But yeah, that's also in your little packet there. Any questions on any of that so far? Is this useful? Is this good? Okay, good. So vegetables and herbs, soil prep for this. You want to, again, remember you need air. You need air in your soil, so you need to make sure that it's tilled to a depth of at least 8 inches with a shovel or tiller. Add 2 to 3 inches of plant-based organic matter to the soil. Or you can do 1 inch of compost that has manure in it. So when I say organic matter, I mean decomposed grass clippings, shredded leaves, compost, oops, there's a zero there, but well-rotted manure. Work it into the soil a depth of 6 to 8 inches. You need to get it in there because this is nutrients, right? All plants need nutrients. Yes, you can water all day, but can you survive on just water? Not for very long, maybe for a little bit, but you need food. We all need food, right? So do your plants. They need to eat. So you need to make sure that they are being fed. I use mushroom compost, love mushroom compost. Highly recommend going to Gonzales, Texas to the mushroom farm there. You can buy it by the yard. It's awesome, great quality. But you can get it anywhere. So slow release commercial fertilizer, I do fertilizer. You can choose to use organic, okay? If you so choose, just know it's gonna take longer to decompose and really nourish your vegetables. I have a 1 acre garden. I don't have time for that, so I do commercial fertilizer. But you can do it at the time of planting. So what I normally do is I put my compost in. I just put it in last week. I'm going to wait till the end of this week. I'm kind of in a rush, so I'm going to go ahead and put my fertilizer in this week. But if it were normal and I didn't have to wait, I may wait 2 weeks, let my compost really get in there, then put my fertilizer in there, right? Then I plant maybe a day or two later, just to let the fertilizer kind of get in, and then also let the compost get in. You need to let it do its thing. Ideally, I would have put my compost in maybe early January, mid-January. Then I would have put my fertilizer in late January. Then I would have been putting my plants in this week. But like I said, I work at the food bank. We're very busy. I don't have that time. But again, planning. I had it on my calendar. It just didn't happen. So again. They vary in size. I think the largest one we have is probably about, I'm trying to think, it's probably like 30 feet long and like 6 feet wide. And they come up to about here. So they're pretty tall. Yeah, they're big. That's probably like the biggest one, but we have varying sizes. Come see us at the food bank anytime, I'll show you the garden. I do need volunteers. So yes, you'll work everything into a depth of 6 to 8 inches, both your compost and your fertilizer. Do this before you plant. You put in the fertilizer at the time of planting, it's fine. A lot of gardeners do that. So like the day that you're putting your plants in, you want to look at what your specific variety needs, because everything needs different types of fertilizer, right? There's 3 numbers on a fertilizer bag. You'll see it. It'll say like 10, 20, 10 or 20, 0, 0, right? So those are nutrients, which I am sending you home today with this bag, a soil testing bag. This is from the AgriLife Extension Center. You get soil samples. It tells you how to do that right here, okay? And then you send it off to Texas A&M. They will test the soil for you, send you back a full report, depending on how much money you want to spend. They give you different options here. This you have to send with the bag, right, in an envelope. And then they'll send you back and say, okay, you need nitrogen, which is typically what you need for vegetables and fruiting vegetables, nitrogen, and that's the first number on fertilizer. And it'll tell you how much you need per square foot. Then you have to do the math. I'll say, okay, I have a, I don't know, specific size garden, I need this much fertilizer. So you need to look at how much your specific needs are where you are, right? This is going to tell you how much you need. They recommend doing this every 2 to 3 years. But also doing your amendments, like I would say quarterly, compost and fertilizer quarterly, will help you to not need this so much, right, all the time. You have a question? Oh yes, great question. So where can you get these bags? You can get them at your local extension office. Every county has one. So I think Seguin has one downtown. I think it might be behind the police station, but I'm not sure. But it's in that area. It's downtown Seguin. Just Google, Seguin AgriLife Extension Office. It's here in town. You can go get those bags there. They have tons of them. You can also look online. You don't need to have this fancy bag. You can just send a quart size bag. So if you have a Ziploc, quart size Ziploc, they will accept that. I just went and got these for you specifically. And then you will have to go online and download and print this off. It's the soil sample. It's different. There's different ones. And actually, it's not on this one, but it's on one of the slides. I put the website. It says soil testing on the bottom. And then for homeowners, you have a different one than if you have a commercial land. So if you're like a farmer, you have a different one. I brought the one for homeowners because I assumed that all of you are probably gardening at home. If you're a farmer, it's a different handout. So we talked about that. Remove compacted dirt clods. Avoid walking on your soil because, again, it compacts it. Dig, cultivate only when it is dry or slightly moist, never when it's super wet. Regularly add your organic material. And then only dig and cultivate sections of your garden that you're going to actually use for gardening. Fertilize before planting, just compost will not work. If you want the highest success rate. Not saying if you don't fertilize, you're not going to get vegetables. You will, but it's just more successful when you add fertilizer. So this is something I got from the Comel Master Gardener official book. I love this. I live by this. It's covered in coffee stains and everything else because you can buy these at any garden store, I think, in New Braunfels. I don't know if Seguin gardeners have them, if the Seguin Master Gardeners, Guadalupe, they may. But this is specific to New Braunfels, so spring gardening. You see these little arrows here at the bottom? That's when you start your seedlings inside. So if you wanted to start from seed, certain vegetables are great from seed, direct sow. Some are better from transplant. So it tells you right here, broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower. I actually started all of those in December in my greenhouse under growing lights. Now, not everyone has fancy growing lights, that's fine. You can go get a UV light bulb in your house and put them under, put those under the lights, your little trays. So that's how you can do that. Some things are fine direct sow, and it'll tell you that. Radishes, spinach, turnips, throw them in direct sow. When do I do that? Okay, right here, you can see where these lines are. You can put them in the ground during these times. So I love this because it's a guide to tell you when should you be planting stuff and when is it good in your area, all right? You can see spring. A lot of this stuff is later in March and April. These down here. So again, that's in your little handout. This is information that you can only get in that book, and you do have to purchase the book. So you're getting inside tips here from the Master Gardeners. I just gave it to you. But I would highly recommend investing in this book. It's awesome. $30. Okay, so fertilizing, a little bit more on that. I just want you to read because it's a lot of information. If you want to read through it, you can. Here in Seguin, I looked it up. You typically have silty clay loam, which means that you need, these fertilizers are typically what are going to work best for you. So 10-20-10 or 12-24-12. Okay, applied, it says per 100 square feet. So again, remember I said you have to do the math. You can call your county extension office agent. Every county has an agent through the Texas AgriLife extension, and they will help you do the math if you don't want to do it. They're happy to help. Master gardeners are always happy to help you learn how to garden. So if you want to call them, just Google, Guadalupe County Extension Office. The number will pop up. You can say, okay, I want to talk to my local county agent. Oh, I need some help. I need some tips. But in general, that's what you would do in Seguin. That's what you usually have is more clay loam. So clay is like sticky, when you pick it up. I know in New Braunfels, it's more rock. Okay, they have a lot of calcium and stuff in theirs. Different from Seguin. Seguin's a little bit different. So, again, contact your county extension agent for fertilizer rates. For different, get a soil test kit. You got one today, and then you can do the fertilizer. Remember I said before planting a few days. I usually do it before. You can also do it the time of planting. Either way. But you always want to wet it in. So again, wet to wet. After you put your fertilizer in, hose it down. So planting, now that you have it all fixed, your soil's ready to go, you've planned your garden, you know where it's going to go, you know what you're going to plant, you've gotten the soil ready. Now it's time to plant. Plant as early as possible. So remember you were asking again when to plant. So some things like I wouldn't want to wait to the end or the middle of March to plant my cauliflower. It's going to get too warm and it may not fruit as well as if I had put it in early February. So these are easily transplanted. Some require more care than others. So it tells you right here, without using containers, what's very difficult to actually just put in the ground. When you are putting in a transplant, okay, you want to make sure that the entire root system is covered. So you want to dig. They usually say, I dig until I know I can put the entire thing in there, and then I'll carefully get it out and make sure the root system is still intact, and then cover it up. I say putting it to bed, right? You want to compact it in a little bit, not to where it's like totally compacted, not getting any air, but it's safely in there. So not too deep, not too shallow. It has to be just right. Especially when they're containers such as peat pots. Peat pots are great. Love peat pots. If you want to, you can just put the pot right in, or you can take the pot off or kind of, bend it a little bit. But you can often, pretty much you kill your roots if you put it in too deep. Okay, so don't put it in too deep. Planting too shallow, the roots aren't going to get enough water and they're not going to survive. So again, just making sure that they're covered and that it has a little bit of support. If it's wilting over, you need to give it some support. It's okay to kind of build a little hill around it until it is able to stand on its own, because you have to do what you call hardening your vegetables. You take them outside, maybe you've grown them inside for a while, and then you take them outside and it's like, whoa, sunlight and air, and I'm scared. Again, you think about being a newborn baby, right? You're like getting exposed to all this stuff. So they need a little bit of help, like you're gonna be okay, you're gonna be okay. So you give them a little bit of support, right? Sometimes it's literally just that, just getting a little mound around it so that it stands up straight. And then once it stands up straight and it's strong, then you can kind of let it level it out. I love to use transplants for the things that need to be used for transplants. I haven't had a lot of luck from seed on things like cauliflower, cabbage, broccoli, all the stuff that you saw on that last right here. Like this resource, like I said, I live by this. I've tried stuff from seed just to see if I could do it from seed. Doing it from transplant was way better. So if you can find really, the bigger the transplant, the better for most of these vegetables. the healthier it looks, the better. I would say go to a nursery versus just any old box store, just because typically they take more care of them. Not always, but you know, a lot of the time. So yes, transplant is great. Direct sow for things that go direct sow. Again, you try it one day. If it works that year, do it again. I was told that pumpkins do better from direct sow. None of my pumpkins grew, and I was so upset. So the next year I was like, you know what, I'm going to try them from seed in the greenhouse and then take them out, and that worked great. So you just try things. So again, general rule of thumb, if you're doing it from seed, cover the seed 2 to 3 times as deep as its width. The bigger the seed, the further down it goes. The smaller the seed, the less down it goes. Just think about it like it's a little tiny baby in there, and it needs to have the energy to get out. But if it's a tiny seed, it's not going to have enough energy to get above the soil if it's really, really deep, right? So looking at, you can see the depth of the seed, 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch, barely on the top, okay? Inch to 1.5 inches, you want to go deeper down. And it'll tell you on a seed packet. Emergence, so that's basically when is it going to come out of the soil? When am I going to see a little green leaf? This is the amount of days. Not saying it won't come out after that. Sometimes you put seeds in and you waited 18 days and you're like, okay, I still don't see carrots. And then another 2 weeks later, all of a sudden you see things popping up. So again, we're at the mercy of the elements. We don't always know what's going to happen. But in general, these are the amount of days that it would take for these things to pop up out of the ground. So you can expect, again, on your calendar, you can write it out, like supposed to be emerging this day, just so you know, and you're keeping an eye on it. Always, always, always label everything, because I forget what I plant where, so always label. And then if it is really tiny seeds, like with carrots, you get a lot of carrot seeds when you get a carrot packet, so I'm not worried about putting like one little carrot seed in a thing and then moving over and another little carrot seed. No, I just, and then once they start popping up, then I thin them out. So you'll see a bunch coming up. Then you got to thin them out to where there's enough room for a little carrot to grow, right? So if you want to be meticulous and put them in, more power to you, but I'm not that patient, so I just throw them all in. When it comes time, then I thin them out so that there's enough room for one carrot, right? So that's what you would do. You would thin them out afterward. Watering, again, they need water, they need air, they need sunlight, they need water, they need space, they need nutrients, but water, cannot grow vegetables without water. This is drip irrigation, my preference. You're saving on water, so highly recommend investing in a water irrigation system, drip. You need about 1 inch of rain or irrigation per week during the growing season. So when you're growing vegetables and they're actively growing, you need at least that much. And again, 6 inches, so I was right at the beginning. 6 inches depth is what they would need moisture to. That's about like, sticking your pinky in. If you use sprinklers, water in the morning so it has time to dry before night, because again, you don't want too much moisture on the actual leaves themselves. There will be fungus and mold, and it just attracts bacteria. So I try not to water too much, like going on the plant, okay? I do it at the root, around the root, to a good size around, but not too much, like just on the top of the plant, because that can create a lot of bacteria. Just think about moisture, that's where bacteria lives. So you don't want a lot of humidity and moisture altogether. That's a storm for bad plants. So drip irrigation is best because it keeps it off the foliage, and then you also are efficient with your water use. Last is harvesting. So harvest time is the best time, right? This is all of your hard work, your planning, your watering, your fertilizing, your compost, you're going out there. Harvest when they are mature. If you've ever tasted a tomato off of a vine that is fresh and ripe, tastes 1,000,000 times better than any tomato in the grocery store. I don't care what anyone says. So yes, peak maturity also, just as a nutritionist, I have to throw this out there. When vegetables are harvested from the vine, they are more nutritious, so you are getting more nutrients in your vegetables if you grow them to the peak of ripeness. Green beans, oh my gosh, just flavorful lettuce, like kids that I know that they're like, ew, I don't like anything green, and they take like a piece of kale off of it and they taste it, they're like, oh, I kind of like that. That's not too bad, right? I've had like pre-Ks tell me that, so I know it's real. So just nutritional content, flavor, I'm all about the flavor, but also the nutrients, right? That's why we grow these vegetables. And then you can learn how to can, learn how to freeze. You can certainly freeze these things because eating in season is super important too. Again, the nutrient content. So if you want spinach in the summertime, spinach is not really in season. Of course, you can go to H-E-B or wherever and buy it, but it's not in season then. So you could freeze your spinach and use it later, right, for a smoothie. So I have some pictures here. These are what we call Texas superstars. Texas superstars are varieties of plants that have been bred and are known to have a very high success rate here in Texas. You can buy them online for the most part, or a lot of these you can buy in the store, like Green Magic Broccoli, dime a dozen. You can buy those any box store, but you can also get them at local nurseries and stuff. So this is going to be a great one for March. These are all ones that I would plant for spring. BHN 968, that was the cherry tomato I was telling you about. Oh my gosh, so delicious, so sweet, grows and grows and grows and grows. Amazing. Again, you're going to have high success. Blackberry, Natchez Blackberry, delicious again. Not a lot of berries do well in Texas, but this one will do well here in Texas. Try something you haven't tried, these ornamental peppers. Another Texas superstar. Not only are they beautiful in your garden, but they can be eaten. They're tasty too. Citrus, so again, remember I mentioned that citrus does well in Texas. So the Satsuma mandarin, and I like to put the scientific name because it may be a Satsuma mandarin, but you're not getting this specific variety. So remember, it comes down to the very specific scientific name of the vegetable or plant. So look at that. Texas Superstars is a whole website about them, and you can look them up. The Tycoon tomato, another really great one that does well. You need a lot of space for this one because it does grow out pretty big. But these are the most reliable, best looking plants, toughest. They're basically designed to, they've gone over extensive research at the Texas AgriLife Extension, and they know that they have superior performance as vegetables here in Texas. So definitely worth investing in getting these specific varieties. You can look at your local nurseries. You can also buy them online. Kennebec white potato, red Pontiac potatoes. I love growing potatoes. They're fun. And then if you don't have a lot of time, potatoes are a low maintenance vegetable because they grow under the ground, so you're not out there all the time. They do require a lot of nitrogen, so you need to make sure you have lots of compost and a lot of stuff in there to make sure they're fertilized and your soil's healthy. But I think it takes I could be wrong, maybe 90 to 120 days. So they're going to be in the ground for 3 months before you get potatoes. But it's so worth it because then you get a ton of potatoes. And potatoes last a long time. So, you can keep them stored for a pretty long time before they go bad. But who doesn't love them? Texas 1015Y Super Sweet Onion. You can buy these from Dixondale Farms. They will have them to you overnight and they don't charge shipping. So you're basically just paying for the onion itself. Beautiful onions, Texas Superstar, grow great. Golden Acre cabbage, another one that grows well here. I would start it from seed under lights and then take it outside from a transplant. Or buy it. If you can find Golden Acre cabbage as a transplant, just buy it and do it like that. Black-seeded Simpson lettuce, Toscano dino kale. I love the dino kale because this is the one the kids are like, oh, I call it dinosaur kale. So it's fun, it's great. It stands up in salads, but it also does really well in soups. Because it doesn't wilt, like spinach wilts really easy. That one won't. So very good. Black-seeded Simpson, burgers, lettuce wraps. Good on everything. Danvers carrot. So again, these are specific to Texas. Danvers carrots are a little bit short and thick. They're not like the long carrots that you normally see, but they do really well here. Sweet Success cucumber. You want to do these after March 10th. Put them in the ground, but they do really well here in Texas as well. So flowers, you can't forget flowers. We need pollinators, right? We do need to have our bees and our hummingbirds and our, what else? Even wasps are pollinators, believe it or not. But yes, these are, I don't know how to say this, Angelonia serena. So this one is a Texas Superstar. It looks kind of like a snapdragon, but it is not a snapdragon. It's like a faux snapdragon is what they call it. But they are specific to Texas. They do really well here. Great in the spring. Butterfly Deep Pink Pentas. Again, this is another Texas Superstar. Beautiful, add color. You need color in your garden. You want it to be pretty too. Sweet alyssum and geraniums, two that do well during the spring in Texas. So those are just a couple of flowers. I figured I'd add those in. And that's it. That was everything about spring gardening that I could possibly think of to tell you. Any questions? For worms? Hornworms? Ugh. So master gardeners, you can go buy stuff, but we have, I think it's BHT powder, or BT powder. It's called BT powder. You can try that. A lot of times, once they're there, though, you're not getting rid of them. And squash vine borers, I mean, I usually just cut all of the dead stuff off. Physical removal is the best, so you can literally go out. What I do is early in the morning with my crops, if I see bugs, I go out there with a little bit of Dawn soap and water and just spray them, because nobody likes a mouthful of soap, including bugs. So that's my organic way of dealing with my bugs. I've bought like organic bug sprays, and you can try things, but a lot of it's just physical removal, just hosing them down with water, taking them out with your hands. BT powder is what a lot of master gardeners use. I have not used it just because I'm trying not to spray my plants with too much, but that's what they typically tell me to use. Pests are a whole nother class. That's a whole different topic. But yes, pests, you're always, again, trying to fight pests. I've squash vine borers I have every year. And a lot of times my plants will just keep growing, and so I just live with them. We just live harmoniously, even though I can't stand them, and they eat my plants. But as long as the plant is still fruiting, I usually cut off all the dead stuff, and then they just keep fruiting, and I just keep getting vegetables. But you can try the BT powder and see if that works. Definitely get the Dawn soap. Kids like to do that in the morning. They're like, yes, I'm going to get all the bugs. So you can do that too. I probably put like just a couple of Dawn. I mean, you only need like 3 or 4 drops in like a little, like those plastic. You can buy them at Walmart for $1. They're like long ones, and I just fill up the whole thing with water. Yeah. Only if like 3 or 4 drops. You need very little Dawn, and then just, yeah, it's very concentrated. And so as long as it's kind of soapy, yeah, it's good. That's what I do in the morning. It generally keeps the bugs off, but I do have some organic sprays that I'll use. I think it's like Captain Jack's or something. It's called like Captain Jack's. That works okay, but again, that stuff is, you have to do that beforehand. So once the bugs are there, they're really hard to get rid of. You want to spray that stuff before they get there. Because once they're there, it's like, it's pretty much done for. At least